We begin with a Fox News alert. We're waiting for two rallies to begin as the presidential candidates hit key swing states in the final 5 days of the campaign. And new polling shows the race is squeaky tight. The crowd that awaits Donald Trump's rally in Florida. And at the same time, Mr. Trump's former rival, Ted Cruz, is hitting the trail with the vice presidential candidate, Mike Pence, and that is in Iowa. We'll have it all for you. This is Outnumbered. I'm Harris Faulkner, here today, Sandra Smith. Democratic strategist Julie Roginski and Fox News legal analyst and host of Justice with Judge Jeanine. Get a little excited. The judge is here, ladies and gentlemen.
I hope she gets that excited for Brian.
Okay, well, let's see how it works out. I mean, I don't know. Today's #OneLuckyGuy, co-host of Fox and Friends, Brian Kilmeade. She looks pretty excited. Brian's latest book, by the way, Thomas Jefferson and the Tripoli Pirates, The Forgotten War That Changed American History, now out in paperback.
Awesome.
Hello.
Great to see you, ladies.
Good to see you.
In this setting, I haven't been back on the couch in a while. It's great. You keep it in great shape.
Thank you. We tried.
You'll be able to get your deposit back. There's no doubt about it.
Last time you were here, we put a stuffed bear in your seat.
I remember that. It was certainly wonderful to have that. It was fantastic.
I don't know if that's sincere.
Yeah.
Good to have you.
I just know how we're ending the show, but I'm not going to give it away with this. It all has to do with Sandra's smile.
And why I'm so tired right now.
Sandra Smith, are you the most excited person this morning ever?
What an amazing, historic night for the Chicago Cubs.
I watched with her on Twitter last night.
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
I feel bad for the Indians, but you go to extra innings of Game 7. It's unbelievable. Not to put down Cleveland, which we love.
And a little rain delay.
And a rain delay in between.
We waited longer.
But the country is happy for Chicago.
They are.
I mean, there's just no resentment.
It's amazing. If only Harry Carey lived to see this day.
Right, but it wasn't even close. He had passed away a long time ago.
And on that cheery note, let's get to the news, shall we, as we wait for those campaign events to begin. The contenders for the White House ratcheting up their attacks on each other with 5 days to go. Hillary Clinton going after Donald Trump for his treatment of women and questioning his fitness to be a role model for our nation's children.
Just think about what happens if he were to win to women and girls. It would mean that our girls would grow up with a president who proudly and loudly ranks women by their looks. Remember what he said about Carly Fiorina, a distinguished woman with a tremendous record of accomplishment. Trump said, nobody will vote for her. Look at her face. He brags about doing things to women without their consent. Just imagine what that would mean to girls and women.
Donald Trump attacked Clinton on her emails, even as he was taking a gentle poke at himself about staying on message.
You think Hillary's going to restore honesty to government? I don't think so, folks. Hillary wants to blame everyone else for her mounting legal troubles. But she has no one to blame but herself. Hillary is the one who set up an illegal private email server to shield her criminal activity. We've got to be nice and cool, nice and cool. Right? Stay on point, Donald, stay on point. No sidetracks, Donald. Nice and easy, nice. Because I've been watching Hillary the last few days. She's totally unhinged.
Meanwhile, new Quinnipiac polls show the candidates running neck and neck in key battleground states. In Florida, only 1 point separates Clinton and Trump. In North Carolina, the Democrat holds a 3-point lead, 47 to 44% within the margin of error there. In Ohio, the Republican is up by 5, 46 to 41%. And in Pennsylvania, which has not gone for a Republican since the 1980s, Trump is closing in on Clinton's lead, now trailing by just 5 points. I said squeaky tight, Brian.
Because he's on a roll. Donald Trump, starting with Obamacare and his decision to be so disciplined on the stump. Maybe he's just getting it, or maybe he's just listening to different people. But if you watch his rallies, which we're carrying them all weekend long, he's been very disciplined. Obamacare begins to collapse. The Democrats were supposed to be running on it. Now they're running from it. That helps him. And then the FBI investigation that comes to fruition. A lot of these things have nothing to do with Donald Trump. Others have to do with the fact that he is kind of hitting his stride. That's making everything come together. And now we're in a race that's too close to call.
We are in the presence of a judge.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. I mean, not only is Donald, he's seeming more clearly on message. She is a little more hysterical. I mean, we didn't see it in that sound, but she is almost screaming at people. Is this what you want? She is becoming unhinged because now what she sees is the FBI reopening an investigation, not the same stuff, but the reopen of the Clinton Foundation stuff and the fact that it was never closed, that 4 separate departments or offices in the FBI, California, Arkansas, New York, and Washington, kept it open. And now she sees the combination, the intersection of WikiLeaks, the emails, the news reports, and her movements within the State Department as very damaging stuff. There's talk of her being indicted.
Yeah, so there's one thing, I mean, and certainly if you consider the indictment, that's a whole nother ball of wax, which I would imagine President Obama would have to weigh in on at some point with the word whether or not he's going to pardon her. I mean, I would think that we would hear from him at some point.
Even before that, Loretta Lynch, the one who met with the target's husband on the tarmac, would have to give him access to a grand jury. And that's what some people don't understand. Jim Comey doing this investigation alone with all those separate FBI offices can do nothing without access to a grand jury. Only the Attorney General can give him that. But what has happened is there has been a mutiny.
She's already got renewed.
Right.
Wins,
Hillary already said right after that meeting on the tarmac, she said, I'll keep Loretta Lynch. Do you think that was a bribe? But I'm not, it's not for me to say.
Julie on the couch this week went as far as to say that this week we saw the pivot from Donald Trump that so many, even his own supporters, have been looking for. Right. I mean, a few days out, has the race changed that dramatically, where he's now the one on message and she's the one playing defense?
So let's be realistic. And I've said this for all along. It's about math. It's not about momentum. It's about math. Momentum catches up to math, but math is math, and statistics are statistics. And ultimately, her firewall, and the reason you saw her talking about women's issues, is white, college-educated women. She's now beating them by 27 points. She's beating Trump by 27 points.
In that
among
category,
college-educated women. Romney won them by 6. That is her firewall. That's why you see her on the campaign trail with Alicia Machado. That's why you're seeing her talk about the issues that you're seeing her talk about. Look, ultimately, you look at the polling and you look at the early numbers. Now, the advantage to this cycle versus previous cycles is we actually know not necessarily how individuals voted, but we have some indication of how people have voted already in early voting. And among people who voted in Florida, North Carolina, Democrats seem to have the advantage. So when you look at polling, you have to take into account that about 40...
except for the black vote. If you look specifically at North Carolina,
the black vote comes in typically later than the white vote in North Carolina. But if you look at
you said early voting,
but it's right. But if you look at early voting in Florida, for example, in a 4-way race, she's beating him with Republicans. There's a 27% split.
I don't think so.
I think
there's more Republicans have shown up in Florida.
No, but you're misunderstanding. They're crossing party lines. So you have 27% of Republicans who voted, according to this poll, voted for her, and then they're crossing back to vote for Rubio.
That would make sense in the early voting, but not after the Obamacare, not after the FBI investigation.
The votes are cast.
So some people have been voting for a while
but
now.
Votes are, that's the point. My point is the votes are cast. You have to take that into account.
Up to a week ago.
Right.
But coming from a week, from last Friday, everything is different.
Can't take those votes. But 27%, think about that. You have 27% of early voting Republicans that already voted for her. That's
insane. Isn't it true that there's always been this gender gap in with women in the Democratic
not like
Party?
This. Yes, with women overall, but not with white college-educated. Well, this is very critical. Not with white college-educated women. Romney won that demographic. She's winning by 27 points. Sorry, excuse me. Yes, by 20. He's down by 27 points.
Picked up 5 points in the last
Let's talk about what's about to happen on that stage in Iowa, where joining Pence today is going to be Texas Senator Ted Cruz, Donald Trump's former rival.
How does he help him?
Does this help in the last few days?
When you look at the surrogates, it's all Democrats. I mean, they got the power. They got Biden. They got President Obama. It's great in front of crowds, especially. You got Bill Clinton, who's lost his fastball, but still solid. And Donald Trump hasn't had it. This is the beginning to unveil something that could make an impact. And Ted Cruz and Pence together is a good combination.
It's a great combination.
To Julie's point, though, some of these surrogates for Trump have desperately needed to be women, given all that's happened in the last month and a half. And so you've got the women for Trump, who's led by Laura Trump, who you and I both
went to Florida.
And his campaign manager, Kellyanne Conway, on with you this morning.
Yeah, but I mean, but when you talk
Melania
about how
coming
many
out.
more, and she'll be speaking later today about her immigration story, Melania. But when you look at how many more Democrats have come out, I mean, that's probably the only place where you could say that Donald Trump got hurt by the establishment, because he didn't have all of those.
But, you know, there's one thing that's happening at a rapid rate right now. It's Republicans falling in line behind Donald Trump because they see not only Hillary Clinton, but they see the corruption behind it.
All right.
I think this is elections yet to be.
This morning I caught, you know, Jonah Goldberg. He's been on our show before, and
he's a never Trumper.
But let me tell you what he did today. He did a new electoral map, because we do our own at Fox, and I saw it on Twitter, and I asked him a question about it, because he had both of them in the 200s. Now, Hillary Clinton still had a little bit of a lead, but it was no longer that 307, 320. His was tightening, and I was curious to know why. And you said, I mean, he has not been a Trump supporter, but he sees that there's still plenty of time left.
In Colorado, look at Colorado, Harris, a dead heat in Colorado, tied at 39.
Pennsylvania is another story, too, where people can change their votes, or at least could up until November 1st.
And they're teaching them how to do it. They taught them how to do it. And the enthusiasm is on Donald's side. That's the difference.
Can I tell you something about Pennsylvania? Pennsylvania is like Charlie Brown with the football, and Pennsylvania is Lucy. Republicans have not won Pennsylvania
1988. 1988.
Every cycle.
George 41 did it. George Bush 41 did it. It could happen.
And anything's possible. It's not going to happen.
And jobs in Pennsylvania.
Good luck getting Philly. Yeah, good luck getting Philly Republican.
All right. We want you to spend November 8th with all of us here at Fox News. All day, all night, we will have the biggest and the best coverage and the best analysis as we wait to find out who will be our next president. FNC, as the cool kids call it, is the only place to be on Election Day. Pop your corn, your night is made.
We're not sleeping.
No.
We never live on Sunday, by the way.
Sleep is overrated. The bombshells rocking Hillary Clinton's campaign at a fast and furious pace now. The latest, the, quote, avalanche of evidence our sources in the FBI say is mounting in their probe of alleged pay-to-play involving the Clinton family charity. And their push to seek indictment. You heard the judge say it. A live report on that. And yes, she's coming up. Melania Trump on the trail, her first public event since the Republican convention. Her mission is to soften her husband's image among women voters. Can she do it? And we continue to wait for Donald Trump to step up to the lectern in the battleground state of Florida. We'll take you there live as soon as he begins talking. Stay close.
Alert as we await Donald Trump at a rally in Jacksonville, Florida. New details about the Clinton Foundation are sending shockwaves throughout the presidential race. FBI sources telling Fox News the agency's investigation into alleged pay-to-play involving the Clinton family charity has been going on for more than a year and has now taken on a, quote, very high priority. They say there's an avalanche of evidence and that barring some sort of obstruction, agents investigating would likely continue to push to try to get an indictment. All this, as the Wall Street Journal reports, there were some pretty fierce turf battles between FBI investigators and DOJ officials over whether they had enough to pursue an aggressive probe into the Clinton Foundation. Chief Intelligence Correspondent Catherine Herridge has more from Washington. Hey, Catherine.
Here we go. Oh, thanks, Sandra. You're right. The Wall Street Journal is reporting this morning that a secret audio recording with an informant discussing the Clinton Foundation led to a bitter and internal battle between the FBI and the Justice Department over how to proceed in the Clinton Foundation investigation. We are working here at Fox to independently confirm that information, but what we know through our reporting is that the FBI's investigation of the Clinton Foundation is not dead. FBI agents are working quietly on this case out of 4 offices across the country, including Southern California, Arkansas, Washington, D.C., and New York City, with multiple sources telling Fox News that the Justice Department has been tapping the brakes on this case, in some instances blocking access to a grand jury. And despite earlier reporting, Fox News has confirmed that computers belonging to Clinton's personal attorney Cheryl Mills, there on the left, and Heather Samuelson were not destroyed as part of an immunity deal with the Justice Department in the email case. Both lawyers are central to these investigations because they were the ones who decided which Clinton emails were government work, deleting the rest. So those computers are still in evidence and still available to FBI investigators in the Clinton investigation on the foundation. And while protocol is not to discuss ongoing investigations, in a new interview, the president seems to dismiss FBI Director Comey's decision to reinitiate the Hillary Clinton email investigation.
Hillary Clinton, having been in the arena for 30 years, oftentimes gets knocked around, and people say crazy stuff about her, and when she makes a mistake, an honest mistake, it ends up being blown up as if it's just some crazy thing.
But it's really important to have some context here, because the president really does have a stake in the outcome, because the State Department revealed earlier this year that he did correspond with Hillary Clinton using that personal email address.
I can confirm that as part of this monthly FOIA production of former Secretary Clinton's emails, the State Department will be denying in full 7 email chains found in 22 documents representing 37 pages.
And in this April FBI interview, Clinton aide Huma Abedin told agents that she notified the White House every time Clinton changed her email address so that the president's high-security devices, including his BlackBerry, would not block those emails. Meantime, the Clinton Foundation has told our Mike Emanuel this morning that it's unaware of any federal probe into the charity, and it's not received any subpoenas for documents. So the bottom line for people at home is that there are 2 separate tracks in the investigation. There's the email mishandling of classified information that has been reinitiated by the FBI just in the last week. And then there's the Clinton Foundation. We first reported the expansion to the Clinton Foundation in January, and now we have new evidence that it's ongoing and intensifying.
Catherine Herridge, thank you so much for that update and the breaking news. And we want to get to this breaking news. Donald Trump stepping up to the podium.
Live in Washington with that exclusive story. Catherine.
Well, that's right, John. There's also new evidence this morning that the FBI's investigation of the Clinton Foundation is not dead. FBI agents, we are told, are quietly working the Clinton Foundation case out of 4 separate offices, including Southern California, Arkansas, Washington, D.C., and New York City, with multiple sources saying the Justice Department has been tapping the brakes on these investigations by blocking access to investigative tools such as a grand jury. The Arizona tarmac meeting between Attorney General Loretta Lynch and former President Bill Clinton came 1 week before Hillary Clinton's FBI interview, and that led the Attorney General to take herself out of the decision-making process.
This is a Department of Justice that has been politicized. I don't think anybody can dispute that. And so this is crying out for an independent investigator.
We've also learned that computers belonging to Clinton's personal attorney, Cheryl Mills, they're on the left, and her aide, Heather Samuelson, were not destroyed as part of any immunity deal with the Justice Department in the mishandling of classified information probe by the FBI. Both lawyers are central to that case because they decided which Clinton emails were government work and deleting the rest. Those computers, we're now told, are in evidence and still available to Clinton Foundation investigators. And as you know, the protocol is not to discuss ongoing investigations, but in a new interview, the president seemed to dismiss FBI Director James Comey's decision to reinitiate the Hillary Clinton email probe. The president has a stake in the outcome, as the State Department revealed earlier this year that he exchanged at least 18 emails with Clinton using her personal address, and in those communications, the president used an alias. Also this morning, the Clinton Foundation has given a statement to our Mike Emanuel that they are not aware of any federal investigations into their operations. As for the whistleblower story, I wish there had been time to bring that to you today, but we're going to do that in the next couple of days. But with so much breaking news on the foundation, that's what we decided to focus on this morning, John.
Yeah,
so stay tuned.
You have your hands full these days, very full.
Yeah, I'm sorry if there's a miscommunication. All right, thank you.
No worries, Catherine. We'll look forward to that. Thank you.
We'll certainly get to all the news. The important headlines of the day: the Trump team crisscrossing the country, targeting battleground states in the last days of this race. Right now, Mr. Trump is gearing up for a rally in Jacksonville, Florida, the all-important state. As his running mate, Governor Mike Pence, gets ready for a different rally in Iowa. John Roberts is live in Jacksonville with more for us now. John?
Janet, good morning to you. Donald Trump wrapping up this morning a day-and-a-half-long stint here in the Sunshine State. 29 electoral votes up for grabs, so this is the big prize among all of the battleground states. A new Quinnipiac poll shows the race exceedingly close here in Florida. Take a look at this. Hillary Clinton leading by a single point, 46-45. Also a tight race now in the state of Colorado, where a new University of Denver poll has got it even up at 39 apiece, and a new WBUR poll in New Hampshire has Donald Trump up by a single point there in the Granite State, 40 to 39% over Hillary Clinton. So the polls are tightening a bit, but the problem for Donald Trump is that he really has zero margin for error in his path to the White House. If he loses Florida, it's all over. If he loses Ohio, it's probably over. So that is why, in addition to keeping the spotlight squarely on the various controversies swirling around the Hillary Clinton campaign, Trump has to ensure in these closing days that he doesn't commit any of the unforced errors that he has so many times in the past. It's a concept that Donald Trump seems to have finally embraced based on what he told the crowd last night in Pensacola. Listen.
We've got to be nice and cool, nice and cool. Right? Stay on point, Donald. Stay on point. No sidetracks, Donald. Nice and easy. Nice. Because I've been watching Hillary the last few days. She's totally unhinged. We don't want any of that.
Jacksonville, where he is this morning, of course, a very heavily military town. The Air Force used to be here. There's still a naval air station here. Going to North Carolina, big military state after this. So he'll talk a lot about his plans to rebuild the military as well as reform the Veterans Affairs Administration. But he'll still keep talking about all of the controversies surrounding the Clinton campaign, including the latest revelations that the FBI is investigating the Clinton Foundation. All of this taken together, the steady drip, drip, drip is something that Trump's campaign manager, Kellyanne Conway, believes is really taking a toll on her position, at least in the polls. Here's Conway from earlier this morning.
I think there's a 100% chance that all this scandalabra is catching up with her in the polls. I mean, you see we're really Scandalabra. You see that we're really catching her in these blue states like Colorado, tied today.
Tied at 39.
Tied at 39, according to, and this is a woman who I always say, Brian, can't get past 46%. It turns out in some of these states she can't get past 40, 42%. In states that President Obama carried with well over 50% of the vote.
And Donald Trump isn't the only Trump that's on the campaign trail today. His wife Melania has got a big speech in Berwyn, Pennsylvania. That's in the Philadelphia suburbs, trying to ramp up support and enthusiasm among Republican women. It's interesting if you look at the new ABC News daily tracking poll. Donald Trump leads among non-college educated women by 21 points, but Hillary Clinton leads him among college educated women by 27. So he definitely needs to do better in that area. Jenna?
John, thank you.
We are also getting a brand new snapshot of the race for the White House. According to the latest New York Times CBS News poll released today, Hillary Clinton holds a narrow lead over Donald Trump nationally, 45 to 42%, but that is within, the margin of error. And the latest Washington Post ABC News tracking poll also shows a very tight race nationally. Clinton edging Trump 47 to 45%, also within the margin of error. Let's talk about it with Chris Wallace, anchor of Fox News Sunday. Chris, we now know that there are two investigations, FBI investigations, involving Hillary Clinton, one into the Clinton Foundation, the other into her private homebrew server, if you will. Is that what is making this race so tight?
I think it's a major factor. There was always a sense that Republicans would come home as we got closer and closer to the election, and people had to choose. Even those who weren't sold on Donald Trump would decide they wanted to vote Republican and not Democratic. But clearly, this has boosted support among Trump's base and maybe gotten some persuadable voters along with him, and it's dampened support for Hillary Clinton. In one of the polls that you just cited there, his enthusiasm is now somewhat, his supporters' enthusiasm for Trump is higher than Clinton's supporters' enthusiasm for her. And that could play a big role because in the end, you know, it's not just what the support is, it's whose people actually go out and vote. We saw that in 2012 where the Clinton team shocked the Romney team because they were able to get more young people, more minorities out to vote than the model that the Romney campaign had set up. And if that happens for Trump, they could surprise Clinton just because more of their supporters come out and fewer of Clinton's supporters did.
But you know, much of Hillary Clinton's advertising, many of the claims she's made about this race are that Donald Trump is too unstable, too impulsive, I guess, to be trusted with the nation's nuclear codes, for instance. Now comes this information that 5 foreign governments apparently were successfully able to hack into the Clinton email server. And if you think about who those 5 foreign governments might be, it just suggests a recklessness with the nation's, secret information that is really, I think, damaging to her campaign.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's what Kellyanne Conway, the campaign manager for Trump, called the scandalabra. I hadn't heard that expression before, but I suspect it'll be trending. There's just an array of allegations here about honesty, about trustworthiness, about carefulness with information, about the potential that she could be the president-elect and the target of criminal investigations. It's messy. It is certainly not the way you want to go into the final days of a campaign. And, there's another point here that these are historically likable candidates in terms of their favorable numbers, unfavorable high ratings for both of them. And generally speaking, what we've seen, John, is when the focus is on one, they tend to go down. When the focus is on the other, they tend to go down. Well, the focus right now is on Hillary Clinton in an extremely unflattering light, and that's not good for her.
Which explains why Donald Trump is, as we just heard, so determined to stay cool, as he put it. That new survey out of Colorado shows them tied at 39-39. That from the University of Denver, which gave me my first job as a 15-year-old lawnmower. So I have to put very heavy weight on
credence into that.
39% tied in Colorado, but as was pointed out earlier, that leaves something like, when you factor in the independents who are running, it leaves something like 13% of the electorate in Colorado that hasn't made a decision yet.
Yeah, which I doubt is true. I want to go back to something that John Roberts said in his report, which is that she has a huge advantage in the electoral map, that you look at the reliably blue states, they almost take you to 270. 18 states in the District of Columbia have voted Democratic 6 elections in a row. 242 electoral votes leaves her just 28 short. The reliably Republican states, 13 have voted Republican 6 elections in a row, 102 electoral votes. So he's got to win all of those. Then he's got to win all of the swing states that we talk about, like Florida, like Ohio, like North Carolina. He still isn't close to 270. He's going to win every state that he has any possibility of winning, including the swing states. And then he's got to flip at least one of those reliably Democratic states like a Pennsylvania or Wisconsin or Michigan. So it's the poker equivalent of drawing to an inside straight. He has almost no margin for error. He's got to win every state he has a chance of winning. She has more paths, but there are a lot of more paths opening up for him in these since last Friday. And the beginning of Scandalabra than we had thought there were. So, this race is up for grabs with about 4 or 5 days left.
The woman who may have coined that phrase is going to be your guest this weekend, I understand.
Yeah, I suspect that phrase will be mentioned on Sunday. We will be talking to Kellyanne Conway, Trump's campaign manager, in what maybe you've seen it, I haven't, the new Fox News election headquarters. I'm told it looks like the bridge of the Starship Enterprise.
Oh, yes.
I can't wait to get up there and take a look at it.
Yeah, it is befitting a man of your stature, Chris Wallace.
Well, I'm not sure I'm Captain Kirk. Maybe I'm Mr. Spock.
All right, well, you play both roles well, I'm sure. Chris, thank you. Fox News, I want to take you to Florida International University right now. President Obama holding a rally there for Hillary Clinton on the west side of Miami. Let's listen in for a moment.
The reason I make this point is because I think in 2008 they were predicting that if Obama got elected, gas would be $6. So sometimes it's useful to check the tape. See what they said before. It turns out what they said was wrong. So what that means is what they're saying now is probably also wrong. Anyway, I just wanted to do that little detour. But in addition to, right, thanks, Obama. $2 gallon gas. Right. So, kicked our addiction on foreign oil, doubled our production of clean energy, have done more to battle climate change than any time in our history. We're world leaders on that. We brought home more of our men and women in uniform, took out Osama bin Laden, are systematically rolling up ISIL in Iraq. And by the way, back home, we've made sure that in all 50 states, people have the freedom to marry who they love. So there's a reason that I've got gray hair. Because I've been busy. And most of all, across these 50 states as I've traveled, what I've seen is the thing that really makes America great. No, it's you. I've seen the American people. People of every party, every faith, every race, every region. People who know we're stronger together. Young and old folks, men and women, black, white, Latino, Asian, Native American, folks with disabilities, gay, straight folks. It doesn't matter. All of us pledging allegiance to the red, white, and blue. That's the America I know. That's the America we love. And there's only one candidate in this race who has devoted her life to building up that America. And that is the next president of the United States of America, Hillary Clinton. Now, make no mistake, Florida, all the progress we've made goes out the window if we don't win this election. So we've got to work our hearts out this week. We got to work like our future depends on it, because it actually depends on it. And listen, especially for the young people out there, I know some of you, this is your first election where you've been paying attention. And you're out there and you're looking at it and you're saying, man, this is really nasty. You know, generally, D.C.'s not so much of a battleground, but down here, it's just like every ad is just depressing. And there's negative ads, and there's noise, and there's distractions. And sometimes the temptation is to tune it out, and you want to just focus on the Cubs winning the World Series. Which, by the way, even for a White Sox fan, is a pretty big deal. Because Because the Cubs have been waiting like 108 years. I was watching something on television. They explained that the last time the Cubs had won, Thomas Edison was alive, and they hadn't invented sliced bread yet. So, you know the expression, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread? This is actually, for Cubs fans, the greatest thing since sliced bread. And I want to congratulate the Chicago Cubs for an amazing season.
The president there campaigning for Hillary Clinton, his former Secretary of State in Miami. We have just learned that the president, the First Lady, and the Clinton family, Bill, Chelsea, and Hillary Clinton, are going to be campaigning, you would call it, a pre-election rally on Monday night in Philadelphia. That gives you some indication of how much importance they are placing on the vote in Philadelphia. Pennsylvania is a state that Mrs. Clinton is counting on winning. Donald Trump says he thinks he can win it. And the transit strike that is afflicting Philadelphia right now could have an impact on the vote. The transit workers who are on strike have offered to cancel their strike or postpone their strike for Election Day. We'll be back in a moment with more happening now.
Votes. And the Trump campaign is hoping that Melania Trump can connect with suburban women in the Keystone State, motivate them to get out and vote. Mrs. Trump will headline a rally today outside Philadelphia, her first major campaign speech since the convention. Rick Leventhal joins us live from Pennsylvania with more. Rick?
And Jenna, the line started forming here outside this indoor soccer training facility at 7 o'clock this morning. We can show you there's a few hundred people here already. This event scheduled to start at 2 o'clock this afternoon. And it's an important event for the Trump campaign because if Trump can win Pennsylvania, political observers say he has a clear path to the White House, but he can't win this state without women, especially suburban women, and that's why his wife Melania is speaking for the first time since the RNC, hoping to sway this incredibly important voter bloc in the final days before next Tuesday's election.
I don't know if she's capable of swinging female voters. Let's be honest. He's made some controversial statements about women, and Hillary Clinton won't stop talking about that because she recognizes that if Trump does better with women voters, that could possibly lead to her defeat.
Polls show the race has tightened considerably here in Pennsylvania, which it traditionally does in the week before the election. Right now, the Real Clear Politics average shows Hillary Clinton with just over a 3-point lead in Pennsylvania. But a couple of keys here. Hillary Clinton relying on the African-American vote in Philadelphia, which is 7-1 Democratic. But observers say the enthusiasm isn't as strong for her as it was for President Obama in 2008 and 2012. And turnout is key, and that turnout could be affected by this SEPTA strike, the mass transit strike going on right now in the Philadelphia area. That could make it tougher for people to get to the polls if that strike isn't settled by next Tuesday. Vice Presidential candidate Mike Pence's wife, Karen, will introduce Melania, who will speak for, we're told, about 35 minutes. We're told that she'll speak from the heart about her husband and the leadership qualities he has to make this country more prosperous and secure. She's expected to touch on family, her marriage, and this campaign experience, and the goals she has as First Lady if her husband should win next Tuesday, Jenna.
Rick will be watching. Thank you. John?
Well, some brand new numbers from battleground states in the White House race with a WBUR poll out of New Hampshire showing a razor-thin race, giving Donald Trump 40%. Hillary Clinton has 39 there in New Hampshire. In Colorado, a University of Denver poll we referred to earlier shows the race tied in that state, both Trump and Clinton at 39%. And in Pennsylvania, a Quinnipiac poll gives Clinton the edge 48% to Trump's 43. Joining us now, Kevin McCullough, radio talk show host with Salem Media Group and a Trump supporter. Ethan Behrman is a radio talk show host based in Los Angeles and a Clinton supporter. Welcome to both of you.
Thanks, John.
Kevin, we've been talking about the tightening race. The Cook Political Report, pretty esteemed, examiner of political trends, says Hillary Clinton still has 278 electoral votes locked up, 8 more than she would need to win the presidency. So you can get a tight race all you want, but if she's got the electoral votes pretty much in the can, what does that suggest to you?
Well, that's based off of her winning 22 states. Donald Trump right now looks like he's leaning or winning 28 states, with a bunch of those right in the middle that could go either way. And what you're seeing, I think, even started before the disclosure on Friday last week, was that Trump had already started to correct a lot of missteps on the trail. And the Obamacare premiums, coupled with the disclosures from last Friday and all the email problems that have now been resurfaced, you've got kind of a perfect storm for him if he just stays clear of the controversy. And I think that people have really begun to say it's time for a different direction.
Ethan, it is a tightening race. You know what that means. It means that he is trending this way, and maybe she's trending down, but, whichever way the trends are going, they're not going in the way your candidate would like.
Yeah, there's no question that is the trend, but as you clearly pointed out, I mean, with these polls, the margin of error in Pennsylvania is the key here. 5 points from Quinnipiac is beyond the margin of error. Look, as the previous person just pointed out that you were playing with Janet, was that the suburban women in places like Bucks County are totally turned away from Donald Trump. Washington Post just had another article this morning pointing out that Mitt Romney won college-educated white women by 6%, and Trump is losing them by 24%. He can't overcome that and win the Electoral College at this point. Plus, there's a new scandal brewing that Wired magazine just released about how much Trump is spending on himself from the FEC disclosures.
What about states like Florida and Ohio, though? They seem to be trending Trump's direction.
The thing about polls, John, is they're not goalposts, they're snapshots. And the question for me in my analysis every day is which direction is the momentum going? And Florida and Ohio have been trending for Trump for almost 3 weeks now. I mean, he has the right And if you look at the on-the-ground support, I mean, Rick Leventhal's report said that people started lining up at 7 a.m. It's now 11:37 on the East Coast. The event isn't until 2, and she's got hundreds of people standing in line to see Melania Trump. I disagree with Ethan on he has to win college-educated women. If he wins blue-collar workers in Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Iowa, Hillary's going to have a very early night.
Yeah, and that is the thing. We tend to, you know, slice the electorate up into these voting blocks, and yeah, he might be doing well, or she might be doing well with college-educated women, but there are other groups, the blue-collar voters that have traditionally, males that have traditionally voted Democratic, who are doing, where Trump is doing well.
Yeah, there's no question that he has done a great job with that very simple message of "Make America Great Again." And then the question comes up again when we look at Melania giving this speech today. Wonderful she's giving the speech. Interesting that Donald Trump surprised that on her in the Stephanopoulos interview on ABC, where he, again, in my mind, displays his misogyny. She's just an object for him to use in his campaign, and this is what's displayed, which is why women have fled from him the way that they have. And remember, you know, we can make light of the fact of college-educated women turning away from Donald Trump. 62% of people enrolling in college are women. This is a major long-term trend, and if Trump has done this to the Republican Party, that's a problem long-term for the Republicans.
Yeah, those are some nice never Trump talking points, but I don't know that they hold next Tuesday. What you've seen is an evolution in the Trump ethos, and anybody that knows the Trumps and has spent any amount of time with them does not believe that Melania is a wilting wallflower. Donald Trump does not treat her as an object. There's a genuine deep respect there. And so while it may sound nice and there's a formula for why it needs to be the talking points, the truth is he's on message with Obamacare increases right now. He's on message with the lack of ability to trust a Hillary Clinton operation. 3,500 bureaucrats are going to be elected when she comes in with them. And they're going to be holding positions in State Department, military, other places. National security is important. These types of things have gathered the attention of the nation, and people are watching.
I'll give you the last word.
Yeah, national security is important. And what do we know about Donald Trump and national security? He's palling up with Vladimir Putin, who is establishing a brand new Cold War. I would also throw in this quick point, though, for Kevin, which is, look, Donald Trump's Make America Great Again. Make America Great for what? Hillary Clinton is stability. Donald Trump is instability. That's what you're voting on next Tuesday.
We'll see what the voters decide. Ethan Behrman, Kevin McCullough. Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Jenna.
Which is what my keys are based on, indicates that this is a year in which the White House party, the Democrats, should lose. But I also noted in that Washington Post piece that I'd hedged my prediction for the first time in more than 30 years, saying that in Donald Trump we might have a history-shattering candidate who could change patterns that have held since 1860 in this country and have enabled me to correctly predict every election since 1984.
Well, that was American University professor Alan Lichtman on Happening Now. Back in September, feels like a lifetime ago. He's correctly predicted every presidential winner since 1984, and back in September he thought Donald Trump would win. But a whole lot has happened since then, so we wanted to check back in with him. Professor Alan Lichtman is our guest. Professor, great for you to join us again.
Great to be here again.
So, where do you stand today?
Well, you know, my keys have not changed, but they have become a little bit weaker. The way the system works, if 6 of my 13 keys go against the incumbent White House party, they're predicted losers. It's still exactly 6 keys, although that third party key that goes against the White House party is a little bit shaky, as Gary Johnson seems to be fading. And I have not, however, reneged on my qualification that Donald Trump is such a precedent-shattering candidate that he could snatch defeat from the jaws of victory.
Okay,
look, if it was John Kasich or Marco Rubio, I'd have no qualification.
Really? Okay, well, I'm curious if you can put in context for our viewers, how many times you have offered such qualifications in the past? Is this the first time? Never?
Never. Never in 30 years, since before you were born.
Well, I wish that was the case, but it's not. Professor, what are you looking at? What do you think is going to be the determining factor in all of this?
Well, as I said, Donald Trump is an out-of-the-box candidate. We've never seen a candidate before with no record of public service or record of enriching himself, often at the expense of others through bankruptcies or the Trump University. We've never seen a candidate who in advance of an election has said it's rigged and threatened 200 years of the peaceful transfer of power. Let me give you one more example. You know, back in 2012, for a while, Herman Cain was the favorite for the Republican nomination. 3 or 4 women came out and accused him of sexual harassment. That drove him out of the race. Donald Trump has bragged about sexual harassment, something Herman Cain never did. 12 women have accused him of it, and he soldiers on. I have never seen an election this unusual.
Okay, but you don't have sexual harassment, though, on your 12 points.
No, that's why it's a qualification.
Right.
You know, I may have to totally advise my keys. But in the end, the nitty-gritty, because this is such a fascinating election because you have 2 contrary forces. The force of history, which says this should be a change election, and the force of Trump, which says, you know, a majority of the American people are worried that he's not fit for office. That's why this is such a puzzling election. And in the end, it may come down, because of those contending parallel forces, to who can turn out their voters better.
It sounds like, now, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like you're not a huge Donald Trump fan. So I'm curious.
I'm not.
I'm curious, as you've looked at your 12 points, what it's taken for you to come out publicly and say, I actually think this guy's going to win based on the formula that I myself created.
That's right. And, you know, I'm totally objective when it comes to my formula. In 9 elections, I predicted 5 Democrats and 4 Republicans. And I've never hedged before, you know, even when I have picked Republicans to win.
Got it.
But Donald Trump is unique, and I don't think I'm the only one who has made that case.
Well, we certainly have heard that before, that he is unique. In fact, we're going to have a special story for our viewers tomorrow that are going to put that call of his uniqueness in some context in our presidential history. I want you to tell us a little bit about one of the other points you're looking at. And we haven't talked about the third-party candidates a lot in this final run-up to voting day. But what is the effect that you see that potentially Gary Johnson can play in this race?
Great point. Typically, third-party candidates are poison for the White House party. Look what Ross Perot did to George H.W. Bush in 1992. And for a while, Gary Johnson was really riding high, and that was a very solid key. He was polling 13 to 14%. But the Libertarian Party has made a huge mistake, which is why Gary Johnson is fading, and that key could be problematic. They picked the wrong guy. Gary Johnson is a loon. They should have picked William Weld, the vice president, at the top of the ticket and put Gary Johnson second.
You know, I appreciate that you just don't hold back, because we need more. We just need some honest conversation these days. We got so much noise out there. Okay, you have 5 days before voting day. I know there's early voting. I know all of that. We've talked about that with our viewers. Could you change your prediction in the next 5 days, or is it pretty much set?
I am not going to change my prediction. I've given my qualification for the first time ever. I'm not like some of these Republican congressmen going to flip and flip-flop back. No way.
Well, Professor, I hope you will join us after Election Day. Do I have your promise on that?
You have my promise,
great.
General. I love talking to you.
I love talking to you, too, and it's fascinating. I can't wait to see what's going to happen. So, Professor, we'll talk to you in just a few days. Thank you so much.
Just don't skewer me if I'm wrong.
I would never do that to you. We're just going to have an open, honest conversation. Thanks, Professor.
Absolutely. Take care.